Hi everyone, Tegan here. Welcome back to the MyClayCo studio. Today we are going to be putting together some dangle earrings. Now if you tuned into our last video on using micas and pigment powders on polymer clay, you'll be familiar with the pieces. If you haven't watched that video, you definitely should because they're a lot of fun to create with. But for today, we will be putting together these dangle earrings. So a few things that we are going to be going through. The first one is how to make holes in your pieces, and we're going to be looking at a couple of different methods. We will then be having a chat about different earring findings and metals that you can use. And last but not least, we'll be putting together these beautiful earrings. So let's go. Okay, so first up, let's talk about making holes in your earrings. Now there are a few different methods and it just depends on what your personal preference is. Some people like to make their holes before they bake, while other people like to make them afterwards. So if you're somebody that wants to make it pre-bake, then there are a couple of tools that you can use. So one of the ones that I use is just a needle tool. So this is great for lots of things, but making holes in your pieces is also one of them. The other tool that I would use for this job are the micro circle cutter tools. They come in lots of different sizes, so you can make your holes whatever size it is that you want them to be. Whereas with a needle tool, you can only really make them that one small size. So definitely the micro circle cutter tools are a bit more versatile. Now, I prefer to make my holes post-bake. There's no real particular reason for this. It's just my personal preference. And the way that I generally do this, and the way that we're going to be doing it today, is using one of these mini hand drills. So you can also use a rotary tool like a Dremel, and this is particularly handy if you have a lot of earrings to get through. So I normally only do a small batch of earrings. I don't sell my earrings, I just make them for myself and family and friends. So I don't ever have to sit down for, a couple of hours and put together a whole heap of earrings. If you are doing that, I definitely recommend investing in some kind of rotary tool or a Dremel. Looking at that option, you can get lots of different drill bits for your Dremel and rotary tool. If you do get a hand drill like this, they will generally come with a whole heap of different drill bits that you can use. So the one that I tend to use most of the time is about 1 to 1.2 millimeters, and I find that for most of the earrings I create, that hole is big enough for what I'm doing. So you just want to make sure that your hole is big enough so that your jump ring can sit in there comfortably and your dangle earring will swing a bit. You don't want to go too tight because otherwise you're not going to get that beautiful movement that you get with a dangle earring. In saying that, you also don't want to have this big gaping hole that takes away from the beautiful earrings that you've made. So what we're going to do is just drill a few holes in these earrings, and that will be the first step on putting together these beautiful dangles. Okay, so we have our earrings here all ready to go, and I'm very lucky because I'm just looking at these and I haven't given myself anything too complicated. For most of them, we're just going to be drilling at the tops of the pieces. So that is great. You can look at doing more complex pieces where you perhaps might drill up the top here and then potentially you could drill 3 holes here and dangle something from there, which would also look amazing. But today we are just going to keep it simple. So I've got my drill here. If you do get one of these and it's in pieces, which they normally are, and you're not sure how to put them together, we do have a video on our YouTube channel showing how to put these together to make it a little bit easier for you. But let's drill some holes. Now, the thing that I always find a little bit difficult is making sure that you do get right in the middle. So I normally just do a little bit of a prick there just so I can see that I've definitely got it in the middle, and then I just twist. Now, the great thing about polymer clay is that it is pretty soft, so it means that you don't have to press hard with this drill. All you need to really do is just twist it, and all that twisting will do all the hard work for you. And we've got this coming out the other side now. Okay, and I normally just poke it through the back as well, just so we can make sure that we've got a nice clean hole there. Look. All right, let's do the other one and make sure we get it symmetrical. because that is most definitely not my forte. As you can see, that if you did have a whole heap of earrings that you needed to drill and put together, you definitely would want to be going down a motorized option, because it definitely can work out to be a bit of a lengthy process if you were just using a hand drill for a lot of pairs of earrings. Thankfully with this one, because it's got the stencil here, I can kind of use the circles as a guide so that I can get these ones pretty even. Now we want to make sure that with these top pieces that we also have them looking symmetrical. I mean, you don't have to, but I would like the symmetrical look on this. So what I'm going to do is just line them up there, and I'm going to drill a hole in these two gaps here. I think that that will look good. Now, when you are drilling your holes, you want to make sure basically that you're going as close as possible to the edge of the earring, but not too close, because you could potentially drill through the edge of the earring and that would be a little bit disastrous. But we want to make sure that we go as close as possible, just so that when we do link our jump ring through here, they're close enough that we're not going to have too wide a gap that the jump ring won't fit. Now I'm going to show you a quick trick with these flower ones. So let's say that we're going to put our dangle through here. And if you are worried about getting your holes exactly the same, a little trick that you can do is put one on top of the other. Now you need to make sure that you do line that up well, and then just drill through the top here, okay? And make your little guide hole. So if you see here, now we've got that little guide hole there, and we know exactly where we're going to drill so that they are exactly the same. Now another tip that I did get that I wish I'd known sooner, and I rarely seem to do it, I don't know why, but something that you can do is prior to baking, even if you're not going to make your holes prior to baking, what you can still do is use a tool like the needle tool that I showed you earlier, just to do a little guide hole. So you just do a slight little prick, so you just have a little indent there, and that can be your guide of where you're going to drill, and it can help you make sure that you do line them up perfectly. I know I'm talking about lining them up perfectly a lot, but it's just because it's a challenge that I have, and I know that a lot of other people have the same challenge. And last but not least, we've got our beautiful 4 stone ones here. So drill these, we might just speed this up. Okay, so we have all of our pieces drilled and ready to go. I'm going to go give them a little bit of a dust off, and then we will come back and we'll have a little chat about the findings that we're going to be using. So we have the holes in our earrings, and now we want to look at the findings that we want to use. Now there are a few things that you want to consider when you're selecting your findings. One of them is going to be the style, and does it work with your earring pieces that you have? Another one is going to be the color, and there are a lot of different colors that you can look at using nowadays. You also want to consider what type of metal you're using. So whether you're making earrings for yourself, for family and friends, or for customers, there may be some metal allergies that you need to consider when you are selecting the material that you use. And the other thing that you also want to look at is the cost of the findings. So unfortunately for most of us, this is something that we do need to think about. We would all love to be creating pieces with, platinum findings, but it isn't always affordable for us to do that. So what are the options that do work within our budget? Now, if we do jump back to the metal allergies, so this is something I'm definitely not an expert on, but I do personally have metal allergies. So I've done a bit of research over the years to work out what type of metals work for me and my ears. So I use primarily 304 and 316 grade stainless steel. It's great because I know what's in them, and I know that if I put some earrings in that have those findings, that I'm not going to end up with red, swollen, itchy ears. Now, I have bought earrings from the past that have used stainless steel. They're obviously a different grade to this, and they must have a different recipe because within an hour I can feel my ears starting to tingle and get itchy. So that's why I make sure I stick to those grades so that I know exactly what I'm getting. If you are using stainless steel, you do need to consider if people that you're making them for have a nickel allergy, because generally stainless steel will have nickel in it. In fact, most metals that you're going to come across will have some nickel in there. And if you think of things like watches or glasses frames, they're commonly 316 and 304 stainless steel. For most people, the small amount of nickel that's in there, they're not going to be having a reaction with it, but there are definitely people that are very sensitive to it. And in those cases, you would need to look at using a finding like titanium or platinum, something like that. Of course, these are going to be a bit more expensive, so it is something that you need to work out what budget you're working with, and do you need to use those more expensive findings. Now, another metal allergy that you might come across, and again, I'm lucky enough to have this metal allergy, is copper. So why is that important? Because you will find a lot of findings out there are made of brass. Now, brass has quite a high percentage of copper in there, and for me, I can't wear brass. And what happens is you will find, if you do have this allergy, that the metal does react with your skin and it can turn like a greeny kind of color. I also tend to have this issue with rose gold, and that is because that beautiful color that you get with rose gold, that is made by adding copper to it. So unfortunately for me, a couple of these things are off limits, but for a lot of people that isn't the case. I know my sister Carla, who you've probably seen on our YouTube channel, she can wear all of these with no issues, and it's just because she has a different skin type than me. So I guess all I'm saying is it's just important to be aware of these things. So now we have the fun part of selecting our findings, and I just want to give you a little look at some of the options that are out there. If you do a little bit of a Google search, you will find that there are so many different types of findings for you to choose from, which is amazing that we have that kind of choice. I will say though that the ones that I find myself using all the time are these ball posts. They are very popular at the moment, and I do find that they go with most of my styles, so I use them a lot. But also fish hooks are very, very popular, and they give you quite a classic look as well. These Leverback Huggy ones are also quite popular, and I also love the half hoops. They're one of my favorites. So you do have quite a few options, as you can see. One thing I do want to draw attention to, and I'll just grab these here. Now, it is important to keep in mind that you are going to have two different types of loops. So if you have a look at these, we have vertical and a horizontal loop. And what that basically means is just the way that the loop is facing here will determine whether they're vertical or horizontal hoops. So why does this matter? When we are attaching our jump rings, it just means that potentially if they're facing a certain way, we may need to use two jump rings to connect them to our piece. So I know for a lot of polymer clay artists, they do prefer the vertical loop because it does generally mean that you only have to have one jump ring connector there, and it gives it a more clean look. So now I'm going to go ahead and select some findings that are going to go with our pieces here. So just having a look at my chameleons, I'd already thought earlier I thought that they would team really well with some wooden components. So if I have a look at them against the walnut versus the light bamboo, and I'm thinking that maybe the walnut gives that some nice contrast. Now these beautiful snakes here, I'm thinking maybe some half hoops. Just line up the colors. So I'm a very visual person and I like to actually see what the earring findings are going to look like. So I do put them against my pieces so I can work out if they're a good color combo. Now these I definitely want to pick up on the gold flecks that we've got going through them, so that is an easy decision for me. And I think with these ones, kind of got a bit of a bohemian style, and I think they will look nice with that shape. These ones are easy, they're studs, so we're just going to stick some studs on the back of these. Oh, this one is a hard choice, and do I go, if we have a look at steel against there, it works nice with those cooler tones. Or do we go something with the gold? Because the gold does also look quite nice. A bit too small for that. I think we're going to stick with the steel hooks on these. And last but not least, we have our cute little flowers here. Not loving the gold with that, but I'm just thinking maybe these steel ones might work well. Okay, we've selected all of our earring findings and now it's time to put them together. We're ready to put our earrings together and we don't need much to do this now. So I've got 2 sets of pliers here and they're basically used for opening and closing jump rings. You can also use something called a jump ring opener that you can put your jump ring in and just twist it slightly so that you can open and close them with ease. Today, I'm just going to keep it simple and use these pliers. Now, as you can see, I do have a range of jump ring sizes that I can use, and I've got them in these neat little containers here so that I can easily pick out what size I'm after. So let's rummage through and work out what are going to be the best sizes that work with these earrings. So here I've just got the most common size jump rings that I use, and they would probably be 5mm, 6mm, 7mm, and 8mm. I have also just grabbed though some of these teensy tiny little 4mm ones, and the reason why I've grabbed them out is just because I do use them when I need a second jump ring to be a connector. Now, probably the most common sizes that I use would be 6mm and 7mm, but what I do like to do is just grab them out and have a look and see if these are going to be the right size. So let's start with this one first. Do we think this will be a good size here? And I'm thinking this is going to be a little bit too big. So I could be wrong here. They could have been the perfect size. Yep, that looks like it's going to be good. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you do want to make sure that you have your holes the right size so you get enough dangle in it, but you also want to make sure that your jump ring is the right size so you get some good dangle to it. And what I mean by that is that if your jump ring is too small, it will be too tight and it will hug the clay and it won't have that beautiful dangle to it. But I think these 4mm are going to work. So if I grab this, now if you have a look, I'm going to show you this a few times, but when I do tighten my jump ring, you will notice that I turn them towards each other. So with jump rings, sometimes we do think that maybe the best option is to pull them away from each other. Doing it this way will mean that you do distort the finding. And if you're trying to put them back together the same way, you're not going to end up with that beautiful circle. So if I just demonstrate it on this one here, will run through the correct way. You just pop a plier on either side, you twist, one away and one towards you, and then you just twist them back. And then you still have your perfect circle jump ring. So let's try that again with these ones here. Again, as I mentioned, I'm going to show this to you a few times. Now, if you're new to putting earrings together and you don't quite get this right originally, that's okay. I will tell you right now that this took me a bit of practice to get right. Particularly when you have little jump rings like these, they definitely make it a bit trickier. All right, so if we have a look at our flower earrings though, they have a beautiful little dangle to them. We've got a nice wiggle and they are going to look very cute on. I'm excited for those ones. The next thing I am going to show you is a little bit of a hack, and I'm going to show you with these shepherd hooks. So I spoke before about horizontal and vertical loops on here. Now you could say that this is slightly controversial. Some jewelry makers don't like it because they feel that it does weaken the metal here. But what you can do is a quarter turn on your loop here so that you can get your jump ring facing the correct way. Now, I understand why some people don't like this because I have definitely had findings in the past where I have tried this and the finding has just snapped. But if you do have nice, strong findings, you will find that you just give them a little twist and you will then have that jump ring facing that way. You don't have to do it this way. You can attach it with the two jump rings. But I personally do like it when it just is linked with the one jump ring. I think these will be perfect. Now the other thing, make sure that you attach your finding the right way. So what I do is I hold it like this just to make sure that my hook is going to be facing in the right direction. You don't want it around this way. And then when you put your earring on, the back is going to be facing the front, which won't be great. So again, I'm just going to show you this, how we then just twist them towards each other and we're done. Now you will notice that some of these jump rings are pre-opened and some are closed. Really doesn't matter either way. I do like them when they come pre-opened because it just means that it saves me a step. Okay, let's get the rest of these put together. Now for these earrings here, we are going to need the two jump rings. So I am just going to get these tiny little 4mm ones. We'll go these 6mm ones. Now, so one other thing that I do want to show you putting these together is that when I do this, I just push them together, but I also just go slightly further because what you will find is that the metal will kind of bounce back a little bit. So you just shoot past those two jump rings meeting when you do twist them back and forth, and then you'll find that they line up perfectly. All right, we're almost done. Only a couple more to go. And there you have it, a beautiful spread of earrings that are now all put together. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you found our video helpful. As always, if you do have any questions about what we've looked at today, you are welcome to pop a comment below. We're always happy to help. Otherwise, thank you again for tuning in. If you have enjoyed our video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.